Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night with the second to last episode of Star Trek Discovery to discuss. And I got Dave here to talk
Yeah,
about it with me.
I'm a little sad, but still surfing the good vibes of the season. So
Well,
you know, that's how things are. That's how endings are.
I see people are already chiming off in the live audience chat. So, Dave, I think we should go ahead and get the show started.
Let's do it.
I'm Fatheree,
This is Dave.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 288th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are talking about Star Trek Discovery, Season 5, Episode 9, Lagrange Point, or Lagrange Point, as Tilly said it in this episode. But we ain't fancy enough to say it like that. We're going to say it Lagrange.
In Texas, we have to just for the ZZ Top song.
You gotta do like the long A. You gotta do the Lagrange. Actually, Garrett Wang, who, in trying to correct everyone who calls him Garrett Wang, people have been calling him Garrett Wang for years since Voyager premiere. He's like, no, it's Garrett Wang is how you say it, and he actually blames it on George W. Bush for doing like the Texas pronunciation of. We're gonna go into Iraq and Iran and just like we like that hard A. So Lagrange Point. But yeah, it's there is like Lagrange, Texas, as we discussed last week. So this episode written by some season 1 veteran Sean Cochran and also Ari Friedman, and directed by a season 1 veteran director Jonathan Frakes. So we certainly appreciate his talents. But before we get into discussing Lagrange/Lagrange Point. Oh, one last thing on the title. I said last week, I made a point to point out, like, it's Lagrange points, plural. I had just mistyped it in my notes. I don't know where that extra S came from, but Lagrange point singular, correction to Fatheree of last week. So,
Father, also before we get into this, do we want to mention the event thingy?
yeah, we can talk about that in the news in just a second.
Okay.
But I got to give a thank you and shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters. So thank you so very much, Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Daw, Geek Filter, Quark Spar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Ben Ginium, Author Lamoureux, Wanda Valentine, and our anonymous supporters. We typically have monthly Patreon watch parties. Sometimes we have additional watch parties. If you join the Patreon at the Bridge Crew level, we'll throw a watch party for your birthday. That's exactly what we're doing tomorrow. If you're checking us out live on Friday night, then be sure to sign up for the Tex-Trek Patreon, and you can come to our watch party tomorrow. We're going to be watching the Lower Decks episodes Crisis Points, both of them, 1 and 2. It'll be a Crisis Point double feature to celebrate our friend Aaron, aka Geek Filter's birthday. And in addition to that, I got to say that tomorrow is going to be a huge day for Lower Decks love for everyone. Regardless if you're in the Patreon or not, we want you to be celebrating Lower Decks with us tomorrow with an all-day streamathon. We want as many people as possible watching and posting about Lower Decks on May 25th. We want to get it trending. We want to show the powers that be that there's a lot of love for this show, that they need to give us a reunion movie on Paramount Plus or something. You know, we want to see more of these characters. And we will have a live stream at 1 p.m. Central tomorrow. We're gonna have a live discussion. So we're gonna step away from our TV screens where we're streaming Lower Decks all day and talk about Lower Decks with some friends. So I'm gonna be there. Aaron will be there. I think Rachel and Starfleet Sohel will both be joining us, and we might have some words from some other friends. Like I believe Dan and Brandy from the Unready Room are gonna stop by, and we might have a word from Trek Yards, and who knows who else might show up. So be sure to check that out and use the hashtags all hands on decks. That's plural. I think I mispronounced it one time when I was promoting it. All hands on decks, plural, and hashtag save lower decks. Aaron has actually put together a little promo that I just checked out a few minutes ago, and I can show to all of y'all here. So without further ado, let me pull that up.
I'm here at Starfleet Academy getting ready for the May 25th Star Trek Lower Decks Stream-a-thon. What is that? It's a global day of streaming Lower Decks to celebrate the show, the cast and crew, and lend our support for more adventures of the USS Cerritos. And we'll be having our own live discussion at 2 p.m. We'll be talking about what we love about Lower Decks, what we want to see in Season 5, and beyond. We also want to hear from you. Post your pictures of cosplay, watch parties, anything Lower Decks, and mark it with the hashtags AllHandsOnDecks, plural, and Save Star Trek Lower Decks. For more information and our Cosmic Koala cocktail recipe, go to SaveStarTrekLowerDecks.com. Try saying Cosmic Koala cocktail 5 times fast. So join us May 25th, and let's make sure that history never forgets the name.
Can't you see that's a flower bed?
I gotta go.
What happened to your hair?
That was nice, Aaron. I liked
That
that.
was great. And I want that drink right now.
A cosmic koala. That
Yeah.
is, I'm sure it is hard to say 5 times fast, so I won't attempt. But I would certainly drink one. It does look tasty. And I think it's okay to make without... why is that still there? You go away. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Now we're cooking. A little bit of a delay there in my presentation. Apologies about that. But yeah, I would certainly drink a cosmic koala that looks tasty, and I think it's okay if you don't have Romulan whiskey. I think we have recipes with some Earth-based Terran whiskeys to get you by, so still looks good. I'm sure it's still yummy, yummy, yummy. So, but please use those hashtags all hands on decks and hashtag save Star Trek Lower Decks, and post. I think it'll just be fun just to see fans, celebrating the things that they love in the show. So, but of course, we want to send that message and get it trending. And
I see in the comments that Rachel just got back from the liquor store picking up supplies for the cocktail.
Nice.
Very exciting. Awesome, Rachel.
Yeah, and also in the comments, Aaron's reminding us that Larry Nemechek will be stopping by tomorrow as well.
Very cool.
So, and if you're not watching us live on Friday, if you're listening to this later, then go check out that stream. It should still be on YouTube, and I'm sure it's really cool. And you can comment and let us know what you think about it, and tell us what you love about Lower Decks. Dave, there was some other Star Trek news this week before we talk about our penultimate disco episode. I just want to mention the casting news for Star Trek Academy. Star Trek has landed award-winning actor Holly Hunter as the lead of Star Trek Starfleet Academy.
I'm a huge Holly Hunter fan.
That's awesome. I actually, I've seen very little of her work. She's in my least favorite movie of all time, and she's in a couple Pixar movies, and in a bunch of movies I'm sure are great that I've never I've never seen. Raising Arizona, right, is the big one, and then Broadcast News is the other. I've never seen either of those. I know her as The Incredibles, and then someone in a very 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 bad superhero movie that I don't even want to talk about it. So
don't bring the room down, Fatheree.
Yeah.
Raising Arizona and Broadcast News are big ones. I have a fondness for her in the kind of rather dark David Cronenberg movie Crash. She's really good as everybody else is in that movie. And I feel like I've kind of got like had an on again off again screen crush on her forever too. It's the Southern accent.
Well, that's what kind of excites me, is I'm familiar with her, even though I haven't seen a lot of her movies, and I imagine whatever character that they were writing, that they cast Holly Hunter for, that they were probably, writing hoping that they could like land her as the lead, like, and get like this big award-winning actress to commit to like the show, which that's exciting. But I think that means like they're putting like a lot of faith and money and effort into the Academy show. But I think she's going to be a very different captain. They're describing her as both the captain as well as chancellor of the Academy. So I guess this is going to be Tilly's boss, but also I guess the main character of the show. She'll be the central figure in command. If they go on away missions, if they're in a ship, I think she'll be the one in the captain's chair. She'll be the one making like the tough calls, and the Kirk, Picard, Janeway, Archer, whatever you want to call it, of the show is going to be Holly Hunter, and she's so unique among those other Star Trek captains. There's no one quite like her, so what a great get for us.
Mm-hmm. I have to imagine she'll also be doing stuff like, fighting it out like with people who, the same way like, was it Keiko O'Brien once had to stand up for her students?
Oh, yeah.
She's going to be the one who has to advocate for the Academy in general, Starfleet in general, the curriculum. I bet that at some point there's going to be some people upset the way they were on DS9 with the curriculum, and she's going to have to go up against those people, and maybe up against Starfleet stuff sometimes. I can see disagreements over that too, even over what they want to teach the kids. So there's lots of interesting roles she could be in addition to the actual captaincy.
The showrunners Alex Kurtzman and Naga Landau said in the official announcement, quote, "It feels like we've spent our entire lives watching Holly Hunter be a stone-cold genius. To have her extraordinary authenticity, fearlessness, sense of humor, and across-the-board brilliance leading the charge on Starfleet Academy is a gift to all of us, and to the enduring legacy of Star Trek."
Nice.
They also gave a synopsis for the show.
Real quick, Father, before you say that, I just want to say it's cool that they specifically mentioned her sense of humor. I don't know that necessarily translates to the character, but obviously she's been very remarkable in some comedies and comedic adventure stuff like The Incredibles. And I hope that does come through in her character. I think it would be cool if it did.
Yeah, and Tawny Newsom's going to be, in the writer's room, coming up with a comedy. So
it's probably not going to be stoic grimness.
Yeah, so there's gonna be some fun stuff in there. And then the synopsis they gave for the show, which they're calling Star Trek: Starfleet Academy. So I assume that's gonna be the working title of the show, maybe like the final title. So I guess we're just gonna start calling it Star Trek: Starfleet Academy until someone corrects me. But the synopsis reads: Starfleet Academy introduces viewers to a young group of cadets who come together to pursue a common dream of hope and optimism. Under the watchful and demanding eyes of their instructors, they discover what it takes to become Starfleet officers as they navigate blossoming friendships, explosive rivalries, first loves, and a new enemy that threatens both the Academy and the Federation itself.
Oh. Is that enemy budget cuts?
A new enemy.
Right. That's the long-standing enemy in all institutes of learning. No, that sounds fun, man. I'm here for it. I've been looking forward to it.
Well, some other news on the movie front. That I see some interesting reactions to this. I know so many people are so cynical whenever anyone talks about Star Trek movies in the theaters, and it's just like, the cliche thing to say now is like, oh, I'll believe it when I see the trailer for it. But this is the one that I keep telling y'all. I think this is the one that will actually happen. But the Simon Kinberg produced prequel movie. Now they've been talking about, and I've been talking about the proposed prequel movie that's going to be directed by Toby Haynes. He's the director who did the USS Callister episode of Black Mirror. He was the main director on Andor, guy that I'm a big fan of. I'm excited about him doing a Star Trek movie, and written by Seth Grahame-Smith. And now they have a producer, Simon Kinberg, most well known for producing, I think, most of the X-Men movies after I think Richard Donner got out of that. But
you say X-Men?
Yeah.
That's right. Richard Donner was producing those early on. I forgot that.
Yeah. But Simon Kinberg was in with Bryan Singer, right? And you know, those people tried to pitch a Star Trek show themselves not that long ago. But yeah, this is the movie at Paramount Pictures that seems to be getting traction, and I think that they will have a movie in theater. They're talking about like this coming out next year in 2025. I don't know if that'll happen, but I think they will actually get a movie out in or by 2026, because that's going to be the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. So I think within the next 7 months we will, in the next 19 months there will be a Star Trek movie in theaters, and I think it's going to be this one, produced by Simon Kinberg.
I'm still tentative on the loose premise that I've heard of dawn of like the Federation or some sort of first contact type of thing.
Yeah.
All of that stuff kind of makes me anxious. Like it feels like stories that I'm not looking for and that have kind of already been covered.
Yeah, this is from Hollywood Reporter, but according to them, the project Kinberg would step into is already in very active development. Toby Haynes, who directed episodes of Star Wars Andor, is on board to direct the new feature, with Seth Grahame-Smith writing the script. The project is said to be set decades before the events of the 2009 movie that was directed by J.J. Abrams, likely around modern times. It is said to involve the creation of the Starfleet. It says like the Starfleet. Creation of the Starfleet and humankind's first contact with alien life. End quote. Dave, I think there's two possible things that means. I think either A, this is going to be something set in between the events of Star Trek First Contact, when Zefram Cochrane meets the Vulcans, kind of like in between that and Enterprise, because, you know, Starfleet is kind of an established thing in Enterprise. They've kind of already joined this interstellar community of other alien species. So this movie could be like set as kind of like the transition point of how did we go from, you know, Zefram Cochrane, some hillbillies up in Montana sending rockets into space, and we went from that to, you know, Archer launching off on the NX-01 and Broken Bow and Enterprise. I think it could be a movie set there that will kind of serve as a prequel to both the Prime timeline and the Kelvin timeline. Or if it's not that, I think this is just a total reboot of Star Trek, and we're going to have a new series of movies that are just in their absolute own separate continuity, all to themselves, and not affiliated with anything else. You know, not. I don't think it'll be like a different timeline. I think it'll just be like a total new reboot.
Still what you would call cautious about this, but it makes a sort of sense for the 60th anniversary to be touching on the foundation of it, you know, the initial surge of optimism and things like that. I guess it's one where I need to kind of hear some specifics as they further develop it or further reveal it.
Yeah,
but,
the thing
I think that post first contact thing you're talking about, there's some possibility there.
Yeah, and what has kept me excited about this is the fact that it's Toby Haynes. I really love the look of Andor. I think he so perfectly captured like how I want Star Wars to look. He knew how to create that. And I love what he did with the USS Callister episode of Black Mirror, and just like knowing that this guy is a long-term fan of Star Trek and he's good at creating like these visual styles that at least like they line up with the things I want in these IPs. So I'm excited to see what he would do in like a big budget motion picture.
Fatheree, I've never seen Sohail so down on something in the comments. He's like posting like the vomit emoji and stuff.
Oh, he'll get. I've seen him
dark.
have.
That's
He
dark,
did that.
Sohail.
He did that when someone was suggesting, what if they show like the Enterprise F in Picard season 3, and he had that same reaction. He was like, no, fuck that. I want the E or nothing. And then he ended up like, oh, I love the Enterprise F. So he'll come around. I think.
Which one?
We
is
just
the
need
F?
we need to give him some time. That
Which
was
one
the
is the
one that Clancy died on. Or not Clancy,
Okay.
what was her name? From Best of Both Worlds. Shelby.
Oh, right. Gotcha. Yes. Well, yeah, fair enough. We'll see how time serves this one. What it proves to actually be, and where Sohail will land on it. Maybe we can place bets on if he'll come around or not.
I bet he likes it. I bet when he goes to see it in the theater, I bet he's like, oh yeah, I liked that Star Trek movie.
I hope he stands by.
Fatheree on May 24th was right.
I'm gonna root for him being the fly in the ointment and sticking to his guns and hating it out of pure spite, even if it's good.
So my prediction is that by December 31st, 2026, Sohail will see a Star Trek motion picture in the theater and enjoy it.
Right on. It's official. It's official.
Okay.
We can come back to this. We have the evidence.
But let's get into our Discovery episode, Lagrange Points. I'm going to quickly recap it by reading the official synopsis, and I'll kind of expand on that with some spoilers. But the official synopsis reads, after Moll and the Breen capture a mysterious structure that contains the Progenitors' power, Captain Burnham must lead a covert mission to retrieve it before the Breen figure out how to use it. And yeah, we get some covert stealth operations. Burnham takes Adira, Book, Reese, and they Breen up in their Breen gear, and they end up getting the tech back, but it turns into like a big wormhole or whatever it is, a big portal, whatever, that Moll and Book and the deceased body of Locke are in, and Primarch Tahal's on her way, Saru's on his way, and Rainer's got to figure out how am I going to get Burnham back. So that's where we are.
So the landscape of whatever battle may go down in the next episode is going to be binary black hole fight. That's the fight level they chose.
It's more of that mirror theme, Dave. I've been talking about, the show began the battle at the binary stars, and it ends with, binary black holes. And like, the black hole is like the death of the star. It's like at the end of the show. It's like, why would next week's episode not be the final episode? It seems like so obvious.
Fair point, yeah.
I'm going to give my opening statement, just kind of like my broad thoughts on the episode before we get into the specifics. Then we'll ask Dave what he thinks. But for me, when I was watching this the first time, I was so damn mad in the opening when Moll and the Breen snatch away the big barrel. Or the big Pringles can, I've heard some people call it, whatever you want to call it, the giant bucket with the progenitor tech. I was like, man, we went through like this whole season of like the Discovery crew doing everything right to like, stay ahead and win this race just for this. It's for it all to come down to, it's like if you're watching like a sports team you're a big fan of and they have like a great season and then they just do like some dumbass thing and lose a playoff game and just derail the entire season. Like that's what it felt like. But then when the action started, when like the action adventure vibes kicked in and we were having fun, but it was still like high stakes fun. I was so impressed with how much I enjoyed the episode, and I was so impressed with how the show could get more serious and go into some dark places, like showing the death of Locke a couple episodes ago, and it could still spring back from that and recapture that fun action adventure excitement and energy from the early episodes of season 5. And I had a really great time, and I'm excited about the cliffhanger and seeing the finale next week. But Dave, what about you?
So I had slightly warring factions in me going on during this episode. The traditionalist Dave in me wanted to see things be a bit more dire. It's the next to last episode. I wanted the infiltration to be more fraught with peril and danger. But the side of Dave that had been bracing since we were talking about this season for the action adventure side, and who also was frankly a little tired of Discovery's epic threat gloom, and danger levels in some previous seasons. I did enjoy that there was some lightness and character moments, even with, the stakes that were looming behind it all. And I liked, let's see, Burnham and Book finally kind of clearing the air, even if it was maybe not the time I would have suggested. I liked seeing Reese in the mix there. That was kind of cool. Action Saru back in the chair. I like that he made Tarina's her jerky assistant hold his flowers. And I really loved seeing Rayner finally take the captain's chair in that most Rayner of possible ways, patting the seat next to him, and he's like, "All right, let's do this." So where I end up though is the side of me who likes the treasure hunt adventure wins, and I've got a few criticisms in this episode, but I really enjoyed the ride and sneaking around the bad guy's ship. And I'm ready for the finale now. But Father, you remember my what I want in the season. Now more than ever, I want that opening sequence with the two hands that get pulled apart. I want them to be able to clasp, because literally Michael Burnham has gone through a portal and may need to be pulled out at some point by Book. And I'm like, oh, it'd be such a perfect visual, literal thing now at this point. So. There's still time to change it, even if the screener copies or whatever don't have it. Paramount, it's cool. You change it before it officially goes out. That's me, Fatheree. That's what I got.
Cool. Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to bring up that thing in the title sequence. I was going to mention it if you didn't, but
yeah. I know I'm not going to get my wish, but that's. Paramount people have done some good stuff, and they know in their heart of hearts it's the right thing to do, and it would be so crowd pleasing to everyone, not just me.
Oh, if you didn't do that, Alex and Michelle, we're gonna have some nasty things to say about the finale next week.
If y'all wouldn't mind, tomorrow maybe go ahead and put aside the Lower Decks thing. And I'll see if I can knock together a campaign for the gripping hands.
Yeah, hashtag make the hands grip in the finale. We'll workshop that, but
yeah, we'll talk about it later.
In the meantime, let's get into our episode breakdown. Starting off with the episode begins with Saru and Tarina at Starfleet HQ, followed by the disco arrival at the black holes and the Breen snatching the bucket away from them. But as far as Saru and Tarina at the beginning, great to see Saru back with flowers that you, I guess, bring good luck to your wedding. But President Rillick says that Rune is dead. So that news has already gotten out that Rune is dead. And it sounds like Tahal is on her way to take his dreadnought and his Breen, like his soldiers, or like she wants to lay claim to them.
I thought it was a little convenient that the one other Primarch that we knew happened to be the one who was hot on their trail.
Well, there's only 6. Well, now there's only 5. So I guess it was a 20% shot that she would be the closest. So
yeah, still a little lucky there.
The interesting thing to me was when Saru says that the Breen border worlds, there's a lot of uneasiness, and Rillick says, oh, that's something that we'll have to wait. I just wonder, because Jonathan Frakes mentioned a long time ago, he's like, oh yeah, the episode of season 5 that I directed sets up something for season 6. So that's the only thing in here I can think of, maybe. Or, maybe we don't know what the progenitor tech might lead to, but I was wondering, is the tension on the Breen border, those border worlds, is that going to be, was that the idea for a season 6 thing? But I don't know. I just wanted to spit that out and get that out there just in case. But
or maybe something that happens when they bust out the progenitor tech.
I liked that phone call between Saru and Burnham there at the beginning when they just had that moment of kind of, they're both being supportive to one another. It was very, very sibling, very it was like big brother Saru, being supportive to Burnham, but also, there's some affection returned when she's like, yeah, of course I'm going to get out of this. Okay, I got a wedding to get to and stuff like that. I thought that was a sweet moment. I like that exchange.
I think I liked it the second time I saw it, but the first time it hit me in that thing of they're being a little too flippant about this. about the progenitor stuff, and he's like, I have no doubt that you will find a way to overcome it. And I was like, that's not necessarily something you say to somebody right before they're going into the Alamo or something like that. it just now that we're not quite at that level of stakes. It hasn't been portrayed that way, but we know the Breen can just like chew up ships. They have that capacity, and I wanted it to be a bit more serious. But that's one of the conceits of the whole season, is that we accept there's a slightly lighter touch to this too. And that's why I think on the second viewing I did like it, because their rapport is always good. They bring it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was real sweet. And they also have like that moment between Burnham and Rayner when she tells him like, okay, Tahal's the Breen that's coming, and that's the one that you have history with, Rayner. So I guess he was like, what a hell kind of coincidence is that? I guess he had the same reaction as you, Dave. But my fear is that Rayner will do some type of heroic self-sacrifice against Tahal to like avenge his family and then die heroically, and I really don't. I want Rayner to make it out. I don't want to repeat Captain Shaw. We literally just saw that last year. Please don't do the exact same arc for Rayner.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna do that. If they do, I will groan loudly.
We will be groaning. This time 1 week from now, we will be groaning super loud.
Do a real quick reshoot if you did that. There's still time, and change the opening as long as you're at it.
Jill47 in our live audience says, "Don't do a Cornwell, please."
Right.
There's another thing here in this opening sequence with Burnham on the Discovery after they arrived at the black holes. They're kind of the engineering is kind of a mess. You have Stamets talking about like we can jump again, but we're not going to have a clean landing. We might be off a little bit. And Book is like running around trying to help out in engineering. And there's part of me, I've mentioned it before, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Book at the end of the season. Like, we assume, like, his community service will be, like, considered good. Like, he's not going to have to go back to prison. Him and Michael are going to be back together in a relationship. But what I don't want to see is him become first officer of the Disco. I'm hoping this isn't, like, set up to be like, oh, look, he can be, like, a functional member of a Starfleet ship and like, help out a lot. And look, we're grooming him to be first officer. I don't want that.
Book without the coat and a little bit of that, like, I could always hop into my ship and do my own thing. Although I know he hasn't been doing that this season, but like, that's his thing. I don't want it either. I don't want him in a uniform. It doesn't feel quite right for him.
Even though they teased that, I don't know if you remember, but in season 3 when they went to Earth, Book disguised himself as one of the Starfleet officers, and Michael made him put on the blue seasons 1 and 2 Disco uniforms. And it makes, ever since then, it's always been in the back of my head, like, maybe they were trying to tease, one day this guy will be Starfleet, and I don't want it.
Maybe, yeah. I kind of didn't want it with him. I didn't want it with oh my god, who had this La Serena?
Rios.
I didn't want it for Rios either. But yeah,
I would rather see Michael. Next week, I would rather see Michael leave Starfleet and go back to being a carrier with, or a courier with Book. Yeah. I'd rather honestly see that than see him join Starfleet to be with her. I'd rather her go revert to being a carrier to be with him.
She's arguably earned an early retirement, or at least from Starfleet. But also considering all the things that she's kind of gotten done in the 32nd century, they'd probably be a fool to lose her. So, but yeah, we'll see. I think there is unfortunately a solid chance that could happen. I just hope it doesn't.
We'll know very soon.
I did watch his appearance on last week's Ready Room, by the way, and man, that guy, he has deep thoughts about acting and the process and stuff, and I loved watching it. Anybody who hasn't seen last week's, check it.
Yeah. I keep saying I think David Ajala is a really great actor and has done some really good work on Discovery. Dave, what was your reaction to the progenitor tech just being like this bucket stuck between the two black holes? How do you feel about that?
I want to preface this by saying that them escaping the black holes was a cool little small action sequence. I thought that was very cool. It looked great. I felt like the shuttering and stuff on the ship looked nice and cool. I don't think they did any of the fireballs, so good job, y'all. It looked intense without fireballs.
It was cool how they could show like the ship cloaked, but still show like enough of the outline of it that you could see like it was struggling.
It's a good effect. It's a good effect. There is something anticlimactic about it basically being like a barrel in space.
Yeah. It looks like the thing that Donkey Kong throws at Mario. Like it's
Yes, but
if you need something to just symbolize, it's just a big container with something in it. I guess like a barrel shape does convey that.
Right. And these guys were not trying to set up some elaborate Indiana Jones temple where, you're supposed to fall down and worship when you see it. They were ultimately pragmatic. They wanted this to be something that, weeded out the bad and would put this in the hands of the good, even though that didn't work either, it turns out. Bad people just followed the good people, as it happens.
Yeah, but that really, like, it made my heart sink when I saw that barrel get pulled up in that Breen hangar bay. I was like, no, like, that was, what the hell? Like, we had this whole season explaining, like, why the Discovery crew was, like, always, a step ahead, winning this race, just for this to happen, just for Moll to pull this shit.
Yeah, Moll should have been like, we have the barrel, yes!
Well, let's get into Moll having the barrel, and I guess her experiments. We got some Breen trial and error, trying to figure out how do we use the progenitor tech. All the different pieces, all the different puzzle pieces, they end up forming the key to the progenitor tech. So Moll can access it and send Breen into the unknown, and they never come back. But what do you think of those poor bastards going in there?
This is fun stuff. They don't have that extra piece of the puzzle that Burnham does. She doesn't know exactly how to use it. I guess it's probably from within it, so you have to take a little bit of a Indiana Jones leap of faith. But are they going to be when we see Michael and the rest? Are there going to be a couple of just Breen dudes in there just trying to?
That's what I'm wondering. Will there be a couple of, like, Breen laying around?
Yeah. Now that since kind of everybody's doing it, everybody's jumping in there. I can only assume you don't die. And so if Michael makes it, then that probably means there's a couple of Breen dudes in there too.
I like the idea of it being a extra dimensional gateway because I want the progenitor technology to remain mysterious. I'm hoping that it still does. I didn't want it to just be like a machine, just like the Genesis device, basically. It's just like this little machine you can just walk up to and like you press a button on it, and then it's like it'll create alien species on planets. Like I didn't want it to be something so basic. I wanted it to be something like big and mysterious and kind of like beyond my comprehension. So like saying like, oh yeah, their technology is like actually in some other dimension or something, and it just like it comes through this portal. I liked that. I'm hoping that it maintains that mystique in the finale.
Yeah, but I can imagine that if they wanted to have just a sort of badass visual, well, it could be that secreted away in this other dimension is like an entire planet or something bigger than that, even a ring world or whatever. That's like their industrial complex for creation, and you have to move massive machines that are hundreds of miles long just to begin the process of it. It'd be like it's something like this kind of in a puzzle hunt is probably worthy of having something like that at the end. I kind of hope it is.
A lot of the stuff going on with the treasure hunt storyline was so much more thought out than I thought the Discovery writers would do. But just like so many of the choices, like the scientists that are in the that conspiracy, the way that like they explained like, oh well, the idea of like having these secrets and traps and stuff that came from the Romulan. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then the way that they're like, okay, well, who in Star Trek would be like long lived and would like have these concerns and would like maybe try to stick around, like, oh, that's something like a Trill might be able to do. And then having like the a Beta Z is the person who's going to be focused on what's going on internally in someone's kind of mind, or if you want to be poetic, like in their heart and soul, okay, of course, that's going to come from the telepath, So I think a lot of the stuff was like really well thought out, and I'm hoping that my desire for the Breen, for the progenitor technology to remain kind of mysterious and kind of like, godlike. They're kind of doing like that faith and science theme this season. So I'm hoping that they're keeping that in mind too. And we don't diminish the progenitors in the finale to something more mundane.
Father, it's funny you mentioned the faith and science thing. And that reminds me of like a few subplots that I kind of thought were going to be things that haven't been as big, like Stamets kind of in his bid for not immortality, but to be remembered for something beyond the spore drive, or Tilly and that early like little quasi romantic awkwardness with the dude at the party. I was like, oh, I'm sure that's some little subplot that's gonna like wrap up. The show's gonna wrap up with her, hooking up with the dude or going out on a date or whatever.
I think we'll see that in Star Trek Starfleet Academy, starring Holly Hunter.
I guess so. So you're saying she's going to be a cougar on this on Tilly's boyfriend?
I mean, I wasn't thinking she was going to steal that dude away, but I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the storylines Tawny Newsome and the rest of the Academy writers are cooking up, but that's a possibility, I guess.
I was joking, but now I want to see it. So again, if anybody needs show notes, I've got lots of ideas.
I guess whatever happens in the finale, it will require Locke to be at whatever destination that Moll and Burnham are going to, because they have this episode do the portable transport buffer, which I thought was like a good 32nd century thing. It's like, oh yeah, if you can store people in transporter buffers in the 24th century, you can probably miniaturize that technology in the 32nd century and put your dead husband on your wrist in a little machine like that.
Yeah.
I liked it. It's a little awkward, but given its use in this specific instance, but I like the tech.
Yeah, it's feeling very Romeo and Juliet-y, which is worrisome because, he could emerge from that only to find her dead body.
Is she gonna sacrifice herself to bring him back?
Maybe so.
Which is going to be an interesting place to leave the galaxy, because then you're going to have a heartbroken Breen Emperor.
Right.
What does that do?
Right. It's hard for me to imagine that everybody ends up with a happy ending, but, there's that possibility too.
It sounds like Dave is rooting for something happy with Moll and Locke, so.
I like it, but it also a little bit of teeth is not a bad thing. I can't quite picture a way in which their relationship, which was so centered to the season, where it ending in tragedy would be quite satisfying. That's where the writers got to surprise me if they do go that route. It feels like it would, because like then him being alive, it's not a win. It's like he's just in misery and possibly heaped with responsibilities he doesn't want. So we'll see.
Let's talk about our heist. Burnham's, I guess it's a dual front mission that they come up with, but they're going to have two people take down the shields while two other people put the transpo lock on the big barrel. That came from Adira. So I was like, oh, cool. Adira getting to use like some cool knowledge from a past Trill host, right? And it was like, no, this was an experience that they had as like a 15 or 16-year-old working on the Earth Defense Force in season 3. The transpo lock thing. But I guess it's just like a signal enhancer of some kind.
Yeah, it seems like it's basically like if you can stick this on something, they can transport it out.
But I like
remember traditionally in Star Trek, they were just casually chatting with Discovery while I assume shields were up for the bad guys, or were they? Maybe shields weren't up until the very end. But I was just like, I would have thought that signals like that would have been kind of blocked by shields or something.
You can't beam onto a ship with shields. So they were saying that
can you talk though? Can you communicate? I guess.
Yes, you can communicate. Yeah, you can send communicate. You can send subspace communication through shields. That's never been obstructed by shields.
Breen must not be like real serious about looking for it, I guess. They probably don't get too many infiltrators on the dreadnoughts.
Yeah, I mean that's not. I don't know. That's some like Trek doesn't really make a big deal out of. If you go on a bad guy's ship, you can call your ship from your comm badge.
I'm okay with some of these conventions.
I mean, sometimes I guess there might be an example. Someone let me know. Has that ever been? Has someone ever been detected? That's not really something like they make a big deal about. Like, oh, we go on the ship, we can't like hail our ship with our communicators.
Yeah, I was just
like,
thinking of like, I don't know, Journey to Babel. They pick up that sometimes they do pick up that somebody is secretly talking to somebody on their ship.
I guess it's like whenever the script needs it. It's like why don't they have security cameras on these ships?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nowadays, what I like to think that's because they recognize that that a surveillance state is something gross and that they don't want, and that if that makes investigations a little bit tougher, they decided that that's a price they're willing to pay.
I liked the idea of it being a very like specific tricky thing to pull off, of like beaming onto the Breen ship, of like they had to go to the exhaust port, which is also like, oh yeah, the Breen are all about stealing things from the other Star franchise, so let's have some Star Wars references in here. But I thought that was like really exciting, like a cool way to like get on board the ship, of like we're going to have our shuttle in the exhaust getting destroyed as soon as we lower the shuttle's shields. This thing is going to vaporize in seconds, so we got to beam off quick. I thought that was like really exciting.
That was a good scene. Also, like the immediacy of the binary black hole sequence. What is it that Adira shouts out when there's just like total panic as to what they're gonna do before they blow up? It's like science later, decision now, or something like that. What was the line?
I'm not sure.
I jotted it down, but now I suddenly can't find it. I thought I jotted it down. Maybe I didn't. Anyway, here it is. Science later, problem now. Because they're about to get blown to pieces and like trying to figure out why exactly they can't. Why they can't transport past those guards, or why the guards are there, is not something to be solved. They just got to go.
Michael has the secret that I guess the alternate version of Book told her in her dream last week, but build the shape of the one between the many. I think there also might be more to it, because we didn't see that in last week's episode. We don't know exactly what Book said. We know that it involves like that quote, build the shape of the one between the many. And Michael says, I don't know what it means, but I assume it might make sense when I am in the technology barrel. But I wonder if in the finale will there be a flashback to that dream and we learn like, oh, there is a bit more context to it. Maybe not, but the fact that like they cut away from it last week, it makes me think like, oh yeah, we don't know exactly what he said, so there could be more to it.
It sounds like the vaguest IKEA instructions.
I also liked Raynor being in command of Disco and wanting Tilly as his first officer. But what do you think of like their little exchange about like when Raynor is when Tilly is like commenting on how he never sits in the chair, and he's saying like he doesn't need any more of the touchy-feely support.
I like that Raynor hasn't been completely defanged.
Yeah.
What he reminds? It reminds me of like Cobra Kai. You want to see Johnny sometimes tell the slightly soft kids like buck up, and stuff like that, and just kind of laugh at them. And it's meta a little bit for the critics of the show, but I think it's fun. I think he's proven himself, and I'm glad they did it without completely defanging him. I
like him and Tilly's chemistry. I say if Tilly wasn't going to the Academy show, I say let Michael and Book ride off into the sunset and be couriers together and be happy, and give Discovery to Captain Raynor and First Officer Tilly. I think that'd be a good crew to serve. I would want to serve on that ship, I think.
No, but Tilly found her thing though. Yes, I like their dynamics, but But I guess I'd rather that he come to the academy with her than she stay on a starship with him. But yes, they're good.
But I'd rather see Raynor Tilly command Disco than Burnham book. Yeah.
Yeah. But I kind of agree with that. There's something a little bit more fun about it. Then you have the perpetual dynamic of like millennial boomer going on, which is that's a fun dynamic.
That's like finger on the pulse type shit. That's like a big part of society these days. You know,
it's true.
Speaking of like generational conversations, Adira's dads say goodbye to them when they go on the away mission, and I liked that moment of just getting to see Paul and Hugh just be just a normal couple and have oh yeah, there goes our kid, and now we're gonna like kiss, and it wasn't like real showy or anything. It felt like kind of natural, and they hadn't shown like much intimacy between like the two of them in recent seasons as we've discussed. So it's good to see like a return of that, I think.
I agree on that. This was like a parent sending their kid off to college kind of moment, and just we did it. We're nervous. Let's kiss and remind ourselves that we're unified. For our kids, it's wasn't like a big passionate romantic kiss. This was a we're here for each other moment, and I really liked it.
And I liked Burnham, like, immediately on arrival, having to, improv, do Breen improv, basically. Who set the transporters of the wrong coordinates and all of that? Like, what are you doing? Like, guard, why do you pause to watch us? You have shit to do. Get back to your duties. I was like, okay, good job. They make a point of, like, pointing out, like, oh, yeah, her anthropology skill set pays off. And this is when the episode like really started to click with me. Part of it was like Jeff Russo's music when it does this kind of like this fun action adventure-y whimsical thing. And when we see them traipse down the corridor with like their Breen gear on, and it really like as derailed as I was when that barrel got snatched away, like that really got me back on. I was so impressed with how my mood shifted so much.
Yeah, absolutely. They allowed our heroes to kind of outwit the bad guys, to have some fun in the kind of the ways they did it, and while still keeping the tension of it. It reminded me a little bit of almost more of like sort of. Did you ever see Romancing the Stone? That not quite Raiders of the Lost Ark-esque, but kind of Raiders of the Lost Ark with romance movie.
I have not seen it.
Oh, really good movie. Recommended. Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas. Anyway, that's a little bit of its vibe there. It's a very, very fun thing.
You said that you think that Book and Burnham probably shouldn't have chose this time to have their heart-to-heart confessions.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It worked as far as making sure that the ending of the episode was meaningful when they have to give each other kind of a last-minute looks, possibly last-ever looks. But, and I'm glad it happened. It's just the Raynor part of me was like, stifle it. Talk after the mission.
Keep your eyes on the ball. We got a job to do.
That's right.
I liked it. I liked it though. I was thinking like, yes, confess now, confess. Like for all you're gonna be like, riding a ship at warp in 5 minutes or something. Y'all live crazy lives, and like get it on the record now while you have a chance.
Well, there is something to that. Like I almost think they should have done it before they transported over. But there's something to that like where if you have made up your mind and you need to say something to somebody. It's a weird wait until you do it. If you're just kind of waiting for some perfect moment.
I think she was waiting till it was just the two of them, though. I think it's something like she wouldn't have been able to talk about in front of other people. So I think that's
true.
Part of it.
By the way,
it is the first time that we've seen just like the two of them like in a room by themselves. I guess since last episode, since she woke up from her dream. So.
That's how woke this show is, Father. People wake up from dreams. So woke. But as a visual aside, I want to mention I like the Iron Man cam.
Oh yeah, I loved that. I thought they did a good job with the visualization on there.
And it
That
wasn't
looked
just
cool.
like for like one scene. Like this was like the majority of the episode
Yeah.
was showing them like reacting to, talking to each other, reacting to Breen, lies and stuff that they are like basically lies they had to tell Breen and gambits they had to pull. And all that, and I thought it was fun. It looks good. Iron Man kind of invented the modern version of that, and did a very good job.
Yeah,
I think.
and the Iron Man version was taken from Stanley Kubrick on 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
As far as like here's like an astronaut doing like weird space stuff, and we're gonna put like strange lights on a close up of their face. It was kind of a 2001 thing first,
Right.
but yeah, Iron Man found a way to make it very very modern and kind of how we spend so much time looking at graphic interfaces all day, on computers and TVs and phones and stuff. So I like how they explained it, like, oh, these are just like some scans we took of the Breen who were at the gallery. So otherwise we wouldn't know anything about them. We wouldn't know about this ship unless we'd like been like this close to it. So, but yeah, I dug that. I thought they did like a good job with the Breen like language computer displays, like whatever. It was a cool effect. And it adds to the tension. It like allows you to still have, because otherwise the alternative to this would be like they take their helmets off every 5 minutes whenever you need like an emotional. Because like anyone who's a producer of television is gonna be like, okay, I can't do like this entire episode of just like Breen running around. Like who's gonna sit and watch this? Like I got to show like these beautiful actors' faces. So it was a good way to have your cake and eat it too.
It can't all be Mandalorian. And I, by the way, again, lots of fun moments like calling them, what do they call it? Ackworms? Is that how you say it?
But that was an insult that Burnham learned from Primarch Rune. So she remembered he called people awkwurms.
Yeah, and then they, I said, you've got a slide up here projecting. I feel like what I think of as a classic TOS gambit: stage a fight and take down the guards with it. What was it? Kirk in a piece of the action. What is he like, Sonny? What have they done to you? What have they done to you? And he just clocks the dude.
Yeah, I liked that. I like showing that Book and Burnham are able to work in sync again. Earlier in the season, how they would have so many hiccups when they were trying to pull off these types of gambits, and then here they are working in unison again. Those old rhythms have rediscovered themselves, and
Like a mirror of the first episode, Fatheree. They talked about being out of sync with each other when they as they were going through the rooms. They're like, oh, I thought you meant this gambit. Oh, I thought you meant that gambit. Now they're back together.
And they're clearly getting back. I mean, like, they've confessed, like, oh, the only reason why I wasn't talking to you is I thought, like, I wasn't good enough for you. It's like, oh, well, the only reason why I wasn't talking to you is because I thought I wasn't good enough for you. So it's like, they're clearly getting back together. Like, I still have, like, a little anxiety, I guess, like, worrying about it. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to see the two of them kiss and be back in a relationship. And who knows, maybe they'll get married, too, in the next episode.
I feel like there's a solid chance. It's going to be like one of those Shakespeare comedies where not just one wedding at the end, but like 2 or 3 couples get married. It's definitely a thing at times.
Well, let's talk about the heist going sideways when Moll figures out, like, whoa, something's going on. Starting to have like knocked out guards in the hallways. Something fishy is going on. I liked Raynor just immediately like, oh, well, let's just like hell Moll. Let's just like call her. That'll throw her off. So by the people on the ship sometime.
Raynor's not quite as good at the keep them busy, keep them on the line kind of thing, but solid enough. Solid. I liked when it got shut down and he's just like, shit. I appreciate that Trek can go just a little bit raunchier now with the language, because sometimes that's just the right word for it, and for sure, at least for Raynor, it is.
Yeah. Like, it goes back to, like, Star Trek 3 when Scotty tells Captain Styles, up your shaft. It's just like, yeah, they wouldn't have been able to say that in the original series, but it was such, like, the right thing for that moment.
Right.
I liked Stamets in the when he's got to like improv how to crash the ship into the Breen hangar bay. I just love how he's had so many ridiculous orders given to him over 5 seasons of the show that when Rayner's like, Stamets, you got 2 minutes to figure this out, he's just like, on it, sir. He's like, he doesn't even fight back anymore.
Yeah. Everybody's got to has had to learn to be pretty good at improving whatever their specialty is in on the Discovery.
But I thought it was like really, really exciting. That's like the stuff you do at like if it's like your finale episode or the second to last episode, you spend like the big money on the big effects shot. But like that one shot where the camera pulls back of Discovery shooting phasers and torpedoes at the shields, and then like the camera pulls back along like that massive hangar bay to Moll. It's just like you get like that great sense of perspective and geography, and it was very neat. It's something like you don't see a ton of in the franchise, but it didn't like stand out as like too weird for Star Trek.
Yeah, they actually held off on the spinny camera on that one.
Yeah, you know, like the episode opened with the camera spinning at Starfleet HQ, but that's the last time Jonathan Frakes gets to spin the disco camera. So pour one out for Frakes.
You know, by the way, that Rayner has probably just been itching to blow some shit up for a while, and finally he's like, "Oh, this ship can take it, unfucking leash." Yeah,
they haven't shot much. The Discovery hasn't been much of an action ship this season. Not much combat. So they were saving it all up for here at the end of the season. It looks like.
Rachel in the comments said something I like. She says, "I like that Moll seemed relieved that Disco didn't really blow up." And that was something that was kind of like subtly came up in the conversation. And you know, yeah, she's also still pissed at Burnham. She doesn't want her plans thwarted, but it did seem like there was a bit of relief there.
It was also cool when like the Disco's nacelles that are normally, you know, they do like the 32nd century detached thing, but I don't know if you noticed, Dave, but the nacelles actually hook up to like the secondary hull of Discovery and are like resting on the ship when it crashes through the hangar shields.
So I need to go back and watch this because I've seen it mentioned, but I actually did not notice it on my viewings. Like I said, maybe I was just like watching the explosions or something like that, but I did not notice the engine realignment. So it kind of did like what Voyager does.
Yeah, like the nacelles are like on the secondary, like on top of the secondary hull.
Like actually touching it, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're like. They're like on kind of like those triangle wings on like the back of the ship.
I know that the what would you call it? The unattached warp nacelles and stuff like that. It's really just a way of saying, look, it's futury. Like I'm not quite sure most of the time, you know, what practical benefit it is, but I've been happy since the beginning that I thought that was a cool futury design. I don't necessarily need to know the details of why it works.
They said it's for better maneuverability.
Yeah, they can reconfigure their, you know, warp streams and stuff like that.
Kind of like Bookship, how it would like morph. You know, Bookship could kind of like change shape and stuff.
Right. It seemed like, you know, at times it straight up allowed it to kind of dodge stuff. I'm sure there's some AI program and thing in there that's, you know, like can make it morph around, you know, a piece of debris that would otherwise have smacked the shit out of it.
You know, a lot of us were hoping that the Academy show might be set in the 23rd or 24th centuries. Because, I mean, I prefer my Star Trek there, I guess, just because that's where most of the stuff is happening. But there is like a lot of cool potential possibilities with the 32nd century technology. It's worked out much better than I thought. I was so nervous about Discovery going this far into the future.
Me too.
But I feel like they've explained a lot of the stuff well, and I'm glad that we're going to have another show post Discovery that continues in this era, because I think there's a lot to mine here and a lot of world building they can do, a lot of potential.
Just like the Klingons alone, we don't.
Yeah.
Am I correct? We know like nothing about them.
They were mentioned on like a star chart at one point. It like showed Klingon space, I believe, in season 3, and that was it. Other than that, they've totally ignored Klingons in the 32nd century.
Yeah, and that's just one random example. You know, there's tons of stuff. So yeah, I'm glad they're getting out of the 24th century because it was a little bit like the kind of the key areas for Star Wars, whether it's like the not the Old Republic, but like the Age of Rebellion and stuff like that. And I was just like, I feel like I've seen enough in it. I want to see some more explorations of it. And so, yeah. But, that said, had they chosen to do it, I still would have been very interested in it no matter what era they chose. But yeah, overall, I'm glad that they picked 32nd.
I wasn't expecting that barrel to explode into like a portal or whatever it is between the two black holes.
I was slightly confused by that. Like, why now it went up?
Because it has the key, Moll had that key in it, so it couldn't have. I guess whatever is in it is like active now.
Right, like it was basically kind of like they had already opened the door, and then the thing gets blown out.
Yeah, it's like like they put batteries in, like they turned it on. They flipped the on switch.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I guess nobody's going anywhere now because that seems like it became a fixed point.
Yeah, so we'll see. Let's talk about like our ending in just one moment. Let's like put a pin in that. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, Dave, about some of the Starfleet HQ stuff with Saru and Tarina, and Rillick was unable to get that message through to Primarch Tahal, or she's getting the message through. Tahal just won't pick up. She's just like it's like if someone's like reading the emails but won't reply, I guess.
Yep. Yeah.
So Action Saru is going to be Diplomat Saru and take a pathway drive shuttle to Tahal's fleet, to her Breen fleet. She doesn't have a dreadnought; she has a fleet.
Yeah, it's that's gonna make for some cool pew pews if it gets to that place, and I have a feeling it might, but I don't know.
Yeah, but Saru's not gonna be. He's not gonna be able to pew pew because he's one shuttle.
Talk his way out of this.
Yeah,
He's
going to have to speechify. He's going to have to be a Starfleet captain, Federation diplomat, do some Star Trek speechification.
I think that he should just quote the exact text of the 4th of July speech from the movie Independence Day.
Or from the Omega Glory when Kirk reads the Constitution or Declaration of Independence or whatever.
Yes, would also accept the canceling the apocalypse scene from whatever the shit that movie is.
Pacific Rim.
Thank you, Pacific Rim.
All these great speeches in Star Trek, and Dave's like, nope, I'm going to go to these two random...
I can't think of the speeches in Star Trek suddenly. Those are general audience speeches. And also, like, what's funny to me is because those are kind of like action-adventure speeches, and actually not the speech I expect Saru to give. I love Saru's speeches, though. I've mentioned many times over the years, going back to Season 1 and rallying the crew in the Mirror Universe.
Yeah.
To bucking up Tilly when in the beginning of Season 3, I think. You're a very good first impression. Always like him as an ambassador made more and more sense as I kind of got used to it.
Yeah, what a great guest star to show up on occasion in the Academy show. Mm-hmm. What if one day we have Holly Hunter's Academy captain character and Saru have a scene together? I'd love that.
That'd be great.
I loved Saru's scenes with Tarina and the goodbye moment and their big hug, their big embrace. I guess we still have not seen the two of them kiss. I don't know if they're saving that for the wedding or if they couldn't find a way to shoot it that looked good on screen, with like his height and his prosthetics and everything. I think they're saving the kiss for the wedding though.
Oh, I love that shot. It's like a very beautiful, almost looks like a piece of art. Or maybe I'm thinking of that famous. There's a piece of art from Gustav Klimt. The kiss is what it's called. It is like a kiss, but it looks like that. I think there's one figure in it that's like notably taller than the other. But yeah,
Jonathan Frakes composed some very romantic imagery during Saru and Tarina's goodbye.
Yeah, it looks like a painting or something.
I am 100% confident beyond any doubt that Saru will survive and come back to Tarina and be present for a wedding. But they want us to think like, well, it's possible he doesn't, so.
What if he gets an arm blown off or something, though?
I guess there could be some bigger it'd be an odd choice for the final episode, but you know what?
I don't think it's going to happen.
There could be some odd. A lot of TV shows famously blow it in the last episode. How many series finales have just flat out botched things? A lot of people say that about Voyager, but what are some of the famous like How I Met Your Mother, Game of Thrones? Like there's a lot out there, so it's.
I disagree, but yeah, Lost is frequently in that mix.
Yeah. I like the finale of Galactica, but I think you dislike it, if I recall correctly. I know a lot of people do.
Yeah, well, I actually didn't watch it. I heard about it secondhand, so arguably I don't really have a say in it.
Jill brings up Enterprise though, so
Yeah.
yeah. So hopefully Disco can beat those. I think it can. I think it will. You have anything on the Saru and Tarina stuff?
Let's see. I'm double checking my notes to remind myself if I had anything. Oh, well, okay, so right, this was almost like a slight inversion of some episodes back when he was trying to protect her and was like, well, I just didn't want to hurt your political career with this marriage and all that.
Right,
and
right.
she had to say, listen, I'm more professional than that, and I knew what this was meant all the way from the beginning. And he had to say this time, hey, not just the Vulcans can be serious and dutiful. I've got it in me to be dutiful, and I will not compromise the mission. And so I really... Yeah, it's a neat scene where two serious people, I mean, arguably are saying that they will put the mission ahead of their love, which is interesting. It's in some ways it's not romantic, and in other ways it's very lovely and shows professional respect and stuff too. And that they, she does that thing where she says, "Well, I won't make you promise to come back, but I'm going to make you promise that you're going to try real hard." Jill also points out that her outfit is gorgeous.
I like that she has Romulan shoulder pads. I like that, like, it gives her a little bit of edge and like seriousness. Like when she's doing tough negotiations with Breen, like you take her seriously. She's got like a little bit of like Romulan danger to her. Just a little bit, just a hint of it, but it's there. I like Navarre can throw down. I think Navarre has that Romulan influence. If push comes to shove, I bet the Navarre population they could get pretty warlike if they needed to.
And also they, frankly, the costume designers did a better job finding that balance with the shoulder pads than say TNG's people did.
Very much so.
I know they had hindsight and they had more money and lots of other things too. I'm not knocking Trek TNG too hard, but that wasn't one of their great costuming triumphs.
Well, our ending, we have Rayner staring at this portal into the unknown. Book saying, I know Michael's still alive, and I liked Rayner saying, our captain is in there, and the progenitor tech is in there, and failure's not an option. And we see him take the chair for the, it kind of bothered me that Tilly pointed out how he doesn't sit in the chair, because I was like, that's something that, like, we had already pointed out, like, we didn't need characters in the show to spoon feed that to us. We already caught that. But, but they were going to do something, like, big with it at the end of the episode, and have him actually sit in the chair. Which to me signals that both, like, he feels like he's ready, like he's earned that where he can take command of the ship now. He's like he feels like he's redeemed himself in his own eyes, like he had to be bumped down to first officer, but now I think he's ready to be a captain again. But also I think a part of him must think, like, there's a possibility that Captain Burnham is dead, and I'm just going to have to command the ship back to HQ. So I think that also might be in the back of his head too. But what do you think of that moment?
I really liked it. It's almost odd to have the guy who's kind of the old school boomer guy ready, about to have to show his, stuff right as the finale is hitting. But the whole point is to see whether he can grow to work with the Discovery crew and, bring his tough old school acumen and work it with their teamwork, Discovery style. And I think they're going to show that he's up for it. It would be awesome if he does some little callback when they're like fighting guys or doing whatever it is they're doing in that final episode. He does some callback to those 5-minute interviews in the second episode or third episode or whatever it was. And you're like, oh shit, he just saved their ass because he remembered that what's his name likes
he remembered how many clutches of eggs Linus has delivered.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see that come back. But yeah, I was won over by Rayner quite a ways back. I've been liking him. Every once in a while, I feel like they're not quite sure if they want him to evolve or drag his feet a little bit more. But, we talked about this. Humans are kind of imperfect, and he does both those things, I think he's gonna be put to the test. He's gonna have somebody in front of him that maybe Saru just convinced to chill, and it's gonna be like the person he most wants to blow up.
I like that they mentioned that Grum of Ossicod thing again in this episode, though, and kind of like the way that like Burnham was signaling to Rayner or communicating to Rayner indirectly, kind of like doing like the speak in code thing.
Yeah.
But maybe we should call that when we give our opening statements. Maybe we should call that the Grum of Ossicod now. I don't know. Maybe it's something to consider.
Catch on,
yeah, let
yes.
people marinate on that and tell us what you think, if you like that or not.
So, what was it, Father? Grum of Ossicod?
Yeah, Ossicod.
Okay, cool. I'll work on it.
So, final episode of Disco. Locke might come back. There might be some weddings. I don't know. Like anything you want to say before we go into the Gorn Egg section of the show. Just any final things you want to get out. This is the last time I'll be like, Dave, what do you think might happen in the next episode of Discovery, or what would you like to see happen? We already talked about your big one with the title sequence. But beyond that,
right. And now I think that like I was I was not realizing why Detmer and Owosekun were gone, that there was off-screen reasons, and I was like, oh, they're gonna come riding in on the what do you call it, IKS Enterprise?
The ISS Enterprise.
ISS Enterprise.
I mean, they still could. It could happen.
Yeah, nah, they're gone. They might show up for like a little outro, but
they'll be in whatever was reshot. I bet they're in the reshoot stuff.
I bet so too. But I'm not a big maker of predictions. It's not kind of where my brain has fun with these things. I'm slightly wary because of Discovery's history, but at this point I think I'm going to end up pretty happy with this. I think it's probably going to be a fun time, and I'm going to like seeing how all this plays out. And Moll and Moll and Burnham are going to probably have to do some kind of working together type of thing in there, I suspect. It sounded like there was some Unity type thematic going on to the riddle. I hope so. I want Moll to get some happiness, and I want Book to get some connection with her. I feel like
that's what I want. That's what I'm hoping for, some Book and Moll stuff in the next episode, in the last episode.
I think that'll be actually really important. Biggest groaner will be if Book ends up first officer. Please don't do that. Please.
What would you rather have? Rayner die or Book become first officer?
Shit. Those both suck.
They both might happen. Hopefully we avoid both. Hopefully we avoid at least one.
Yeah. I don't. That's the Sophie's choice. I don't know. I got nothing on it.
Jill 47 is asking me who's appearing in the Ready Room next week, because sometimes that gives us indications of what's going to happen. Will Wheaton will say like, oh, next week we're going to have Blue Del Barrio, so I'm kind of like, oh, I guess Adira will do something big in the next episode. But next week is actually going to be showrunner Michelle Paradise.
Makes sense.
Makes sense for the finale. But I'm curious. Michelle Paradise doesn't do many interviews, so I'm always curious about picking her brain. I want to ask her questions. I think there's a lot of untapped stuff there that hasn't been discussed that I think the Trek audience would love to hear about. I'm curious, like some of her inspiration. I think Michelle Paradise is like really into a lot of like old schlocky like 80s action cop movies and stuff like Lethal Weapon and Die Hard. I constantly feel kind of like references to that type of stuff in Disco after she took over as showrunner. So I want to like ask her about that. And some of the other choices that she's made in the 32nd century. But I'm looking forward to the Ready Room. I'm looking forward to the finale, and I'm looking forward to discussing it with Dave next week.
What else we got, Father? Is it time for Gorn Eggs?
Yeah, so with
Gorn
that
eggs
being
and ham?
said, let's go into that Gorn Egg section of the show. And this is where we talk about the in-jokes, Easter eggs, and continuity connections in the episode that we thought would be fun to mention. And speaking of the title sequence, we've talked about it a lot. Dave's talked about how he wants to see like those hands grasp in the final episode, but I know most of y'all skip intro and don't actually watch the thing, so I just wanted to point out to everyone that, you know, they showed all the little puzzle pieces connect. They got all 5 puzzle pieces, that little thing. Last week it had the 4 of 5, and now it has 5 of 5. I don't know. Maybe in the final episode it does something cool. It'll do something like neat. It'll open up or like light up or turn like that portal, or who knows. Maybe Dave will get like the hands holding. But whatever they do, you know, next time we see the Discovery opening title sequence, it will be the last version of it ever seen. And also, in the Gorn eggs, I wanted to point out the portable pattern buffer. I feel they actually planted the seeds for that in the previous episode, and not in the previous episode, they planted seeds for that 2 episodes ago in Eriga. I almost brought this up then, Dave, but I thought it was interesting that when they send the assembled puzzle thing over to Primarch Rune, when he is holding the gallery hostage, it's being held in the Breen transporter buffer for a little bit, because like some Breen tells Rune like oh, we've received an object, and then Rune says materialize it. So they were already showing like, oh, the Breen have like really advanced transport buffer tech. And I thought that was kind of cool that they casually slid that in there. For the people who care about transporter buffer technology, like myself, like, oh, I caught that. And then 2 episodes later, I see like the use of the portable buffer. So I was like, okay, cool. They were actually like, we're doing that with some intention. I don't know. But the few people out there in the audience who are into that stuff will enjoy that being pointed out. But that's all I got. So very light on Gorn eggs. We did receive some subspace transmissions, though, on last week's episode, Labyrinths. That's a hard... I can't say labyrinth, but plural. It's really hard for me to say. You say it, Dave.
For you, Father. On last week's episode, Labyrinths.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so this was, of course, the big library episode, and the most of the comments I'm going to be pulling from today happen to come from Discord. First one from parentheses I says, I'm afraid that if I shared my honest opinions on the episode, I would wind up just sounding like a grumpy old man. So I guess not everybody loved it.
PE not impressed with Labyrinths.
Leviathan 26 mentioned specifically, though, I love the librarian in this episode. Her scene with Book was awesome. Joanne Robertson with a really interesting comment here. She said, I enjoyed the interaction between Michael and Book, and Book's moment with the Quajon artifact was really emotional. I loved Michael's reflections about her life and how she's perceived and how she performs, and it resonated deeply with me. Many black women in leadership have had a version of this conversation about working twice as hard to get half as much, and I was not surprised to learn that a black woman wrote that scene. Yeah, great comment, Joanne.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that.
And our own Geek Filter, Aaron, said, I would say I was quite taken with the locale. I really loved Hyrel. As Rachel put it, she had the vibe of a real librarian as opposed to the TV media version of the dowdy horn-rimmed glasses shushing librarian. And then lastly, over in the YouTube land, opinions no one cares about, he has a bet to place. 5 bars of gold-pressed latinum on Locke does come back, but Moll dies and can't be returned. That seems possible. There would definitely be ways for something like that to occur. You could get incinerated and be beyond the saving of the by even progenitor tech. But I feel like she's going to make it. They're not going to leave Book hanging here. I feel pretty strong about that.
Well, I'm excited to see it, like I said, and the last thing I'll give y'all is a quote from showrunner Michelle Paradise. She gave us a little tease for all 10 episodes this season, and on the finale, titled Life Itself, she says, "Part of me wants to say the end of an era, but that just sounds so sad. I don't want to say that. Hopefully, it's all the things that Discovery has always been. Action, adventure, heart, family, love, sci-fi wonderfulness, beautifully acted, beautifully directed, production values, gorgeous VFX. It's everything we have always had in Discovery in one episode."
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of what I was hoping for and thinking that they would do. But yeah, that sounds like a plan.
And I want to share one final comment. This is too good not to mention, but from Benginium in the live audience, he says, "What a ride! Disco gave us Trek again in 2017, and now we have so much. Hard to believe it's over."
Yeah, it's true, and of course, it's not over. It's over for Disco, but Trek isn't over, and as he himself noted. But yeah, that's and we have Discovery to thank for it. I think it'll take a little bit of time, for the retrospectives to come back around on it. Maybe the same way I did on TNG back in the day, first approaching it the way Rayner probably would have, and then thinking, oh wow, they were really breaking grounds to be what they were in the 80s. And I look back at episodes like with Ensign Rowe and stuff like that. I was like, wow, did she just say what I thought she said? I'm rewatching this 80s thing and it feels radical. So and not in the Ninja Turtles way.
Well, sometimes it can be radical in that way.
Yes. I mean, but usually not on TNG. Anyway, I believe Discovery will get a reassessment. No, not unlike that though.
Be fun to watch, but we'll revisit it someday, maybe a decade from now. We'll talk about Discovery again, and there's going to be a lot of Trek in our future. We have an Academy show. We're going to get Strange New World season 3 next year. They wrapped shooting on it, so give it like 7 or 8 months for post-production, but we're going to get a new season of Strange New Worlds. Of course, a final season of Lower Decks later this year. A season of Prodigy at some point. Netflix won't tell us when, but they are going to give it to us someday. So we'll have plenty to cover. Be sure that you are following us and subscribed and be part of the conversation. Give us some feedback. We want to hear what people thought about this episode of Star Trek Discovery, so we have some material for next week's Subspace Transmission. So if you have thoughts or feelings on Lagrange points, let us know. You can comment on YouTube, you can reply to my tweets, or join the Tex-Trek Discord server and keep the conversation going over there. But we do hope you come back next week when Dave and I discuss the series finale of Star Trek Discovery. And until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fatheree on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.